Hi, my friends. I'm Laura Lee. Some of you who know me as a writer and a book editor, and I am indeed that. I was also a gymnast in the 1970s, and a good one. I was just breaking into national competition when I hurt my knee doing a bar dismount called a toe on front or soul circle front. I tried to return to the sport and actually did return to the sport over the next year, but I couldn't take the landings, and so ultimately had to quit. I danced for a few years, but I wasn't really a dancer. I wasn't classically trained, so I could catch on pretty quickly. But um, aside from not being classically trained, also my knee never really fully recovered, and it would tend to buckle. And so there was, it wasn't going to happen that I was never going to be able to dance on toe. And so eventually, well, by the time about a year after I graduated from college, so I was about 21, 22, I started tapering off. And by my mid 20s, I was no longer dancing either. And so um, then I went to work for several years as a college recruiter for a company called Micron Technology, and loved it. Loved the people there at Micron. It was a great place for me to grow up professionally. But I no longer felt like I was expressing myself creatively, and so I decided to leave and go to graduate school. I got my MFA in fiction with a correlative in screenplay writing. I already had an undergraduate degree in English and journalism. So I began my writing career. Well, um, I've loved that too very much, but there's always been a part of me that has, I guess, um, secretly missed that acrobatic life. And I haven't really known what to do with that. It's just been this little ache that has been tucked away inside of me for years. And sometimes I would sort of cheat on myself, I guess. Like I would, you know, go outside and do a handstand on the wall, and I could always do them, no matter how many years went in between. Um, I could just walk over to the wall and do a handstand on the wall, and so it I guess I think that my body was built to be an acrobat. Only my knee and my back um, no longer allowed that. So it was a very odd situation to be in. And I didn't talk about my gymnastics background with very many people. I felt too sad to talk about it. Um, but at the end of last year, my gymnastics coach, kind of out of the blue, just decided to come out and see me. And so at the time, it brought up a lot of feelings for me. First of all, I was really overweight. I'm 5'4" and I weighed 226 pounds on the day that he told me he wanted to come and visit me. And I remember just thinking, I, I don't want him to come. I'm so embarrassed at what I look like. I'm so out of gymnastics shape. I'm not even in shape for a normal person, certainly not for a gymnast. And I knew that he'd seen pictures of me and he'd seen me briefly a few years before that. So he knew that, it wasn't a big secret, but I just remember feeling a lot of anxiety about how am I going to um, walk up to my gymnastics coach weighing 226 pounds. And then I thought, you know, um, I'm amazing. I, I I have nothing to apologize for to anyone except myself. This isn't about what his opinion is of me because I know that coach loves me as a person, and he wasn't coming to see me to judge me. He was coming to see me because he wanted to see me. And I started thinking, really, what I need to do is talk to him about why I'm struggling so much physically, why I've never been able to find another sport that I love. And I've tried a few different things. I've mountain biked with the mountain biker that I dated. I've street biked. I've running. I like a lot actually, but I can't do it that much because I keep re-injuring my knee. um, I've of course danced, which was okay, and I would periodically sort of think maybe I should take that up again, but it just, even dance didn't really um, hold enough appeal for me to really go and do it. And so I couldn't, I was like, when coach showed up, I said, you know, I'm struggling. I'm struggling. I've never found another sport that I've fallen in love with. And here I am. I mean, look at me. And I struggle with these injuries, and to this day I struggle with my knee, and um, can you please help me? Can you give me some advice? And he had a lot to say. Once I opened that door to this discussion, um, we could really have it. And I was met with so much kindness and so much understanding and empathy for these injuries. And one of the things that he said to me was, you know, you can't be what you were physically, but you also have nothing to prove because you've proved it, and now it's about having fun. And he said, once you've done a sport like gymnastics at that high level, nothing else is going to measure up. It's really about having fun. And I had to really take that in because I realized all these years I had, in some ways, approached other sports thinking that I was going to fall in love with something in the same way that I fell in love with gymnastics. And how could it happen? Not that any other sport isn't just as great. It's just not as great for me. And I realized that what he was saying, and that the answer for me was that instead of running away from my sport and looking for something alternate, I needed to come back to it and try to find a little piece of it that I could still do. And so that became handstands. For the next couple months, that was my workout. I just did handstands on the wall. I was lifting just about 100 extra pounds over my head. I could still do it. And I told myself, I'm not going to take them off the wall until I can drop some weight, because I didn't want any crashes at this weight, because I didn't want to come down hard on my knee, on either knee actually. And so that's what I would do. I would just go in my bedroom. I cleared a space and I just started doing handstands on the wall, and then I would cry because I felt so pathetic and diminished, and yet so joyful for those few brief moments that I was on my hands. And I started to realize that a lot of the joy for me comes in being upside down and just simply being on my hands. That's one of my favorite positions to be in. And so I told myself, if this is it, this is probably it, then it's going to be enough, because that's what you have. And so you can do your handstands, and then you can cry, and while you cry, you can stretch. So that's what I started doing. I stretched while I cried, and I started regaining some flexibility because I cried a lot, which meant I stretched a lot. And then one day I didn't cry, and I thought, okay, this is kind kind of a turning point. And then the next day I cried again, and I cried for the next few days, and then I didn't cry again. And so it kind of went like that for another month or so. And then I started watching hand balancers, and I realized that, you know, it's a beautiful art in and of itself. It's a portion of acrobatics that's a specialty area. And suddenly it occurred to me that not only was it accessible to me as a workout paradigm, because I didn't need my legs to be strong, but also I could actually learn new tricks. And that is what really got my motor running, because I didn't imagine that at age 52 I could do anything more than just regain a couple things that I'd been able to do previously. And all of a sudden I realized, actually, within the practice of hand balancing, there are things that I never did as a gymnast. I never trained to do a one-handed handstand. I never trained to do counterbalancing, like going in a straddle and doing counterbalancing lots of different directions while I was on my hands. I did do some contortion work on my hands before I started gymnastics. And so, but that got me extremely excited, just thinking about the fact that I could learn a new acrobatic trick. Like, that just gave me so much renewed hope and joy. And so I started working out really hard on my hands. Well, then I hurt my back. My back I'd hurt another time in gymnastics, back in the day when the bars were very close together and we used to wrap them at our hip flexor, and I had damaged a disc somehow. It was never actually x-rayed, but I had a fairly severe back injury that knocked me out for a few weeks, and then it seemed to heal up okay, but it was always like a weak point, and I kind of always knew that every once in a while I was going to get a twinge. Well, 35 years later, I've re-injured that back numerous times, and I've also had jobs where I sit a lot, particularly as a writer, and so over the last 10 years it had really started to deteriorate. And so this is now about a month ago that my back started really giving me a lot of problems, and I became really despondent because I suddenly felt, just as I was re-encountering this handstand opportunity and getting so excited about it, it felt like that was getting taken away. And I felt thrust back into my childhood almost, that, okay, here we go again. No matter how hard you work, no matter how hard you try, no matter how much effort you're willing to put in, your broken parts in your body are going to betray you. And it was this really weird feeling, because I knew I'm strong enough now. By this point, I'd lost almost 30 pounds. I was down to 197. And I was getting, some cardio back and some strength back, and I could really feel myself getting stronger. And I could tell that I can just tell from, muscle memory that this is coming back and that this is an accessible sport for me, except now I have this broken spot in my back. The doctor wasn't quite sure initially if it was muscular or skeletal, so I've been going through some different tests, and I'm going to go to physical therapy. So I've had to lay off handstands for the last 2 weeks, and that has been heartbreaking to me. So the one thing that's kept me going is, starting to write about it and making these YouTube videos, and just kind of following this story wherever it goes. I don't really know what the end result is going to be with my back. I'm hoping that dropping these last 70 pounds is going to certainly help, and I have no illusions that my back is going to be perfect or at full capacity, but I'm hoping that I can manage the injury enough that I can still do this hand balancing work that suddenly has become, you know, again, so much of who I am. So, um, I I don't know why we do these videos. I don't know exactly why I'm putting this out here other than I think so much of my life I've documented in my writing, and this is just another way to document it. And people are telling me that they want to know, they want to watch it, they want me to keep making the videos. So I guess as long as I'm getting that kind of feedback, then somehow it's both inspiring and therapeutic to me, and it seems to be inspiring to at least my friends and a few other people. And so, if you're watching, thank you for watching. And whatever your challenge is, because we all have them, and whatever dreams you've maybe set aside, because we've all done that, good luck to you. I hope you find your way back to your own version of a handstand, and I hope that you chase your dreams hard.